What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the GSD Podcast. My name's Caden Cleveland. Of course, we have Bonnie Campo here. Bonnie, you doing okay?
I'm doing great.
Right on. Our guest for this episode, I'm really excited about. He is the Secretary of Education for the entire state of Oklahoma, Ryan Walters. Ryan, you doing all right, man?
I'm excited to be here. I'm a big fan of the show. I've seen every episode, so I'm very excited to be here today.
Love it, love it. So,
what do they say, like long-time listener, first-time caller?
Absolutely. Welcome to the show. There we go. So school's coming up. We are in August here, just getting rolling into August. School's coming up. Obviously, education is going to be one of the big conversations over the next few weeks. What is your schedule and what does your life look right now as school starts developing and starts rolling?
Sure. I think going through the pandemic in schools and seeing the disruption that it caused in schools, it's really interesting now heading back into a full year. There's a lot of attention being given to summer school programs happen over the summer to try to make sure that students that were behind got caught up. But I think, when I go around the state and talk to parents, they're excited to be back at school. The kids are excited to be back in school. They're ready for a full year. They're ready for the excitement of that moving forward. So, for us, one of the things that we've really looked at is how do we make sure students are caught up? And then how do we make sure that students are going to be able to kind of return to normalcy? Are they going to be able to, all the extracurriculars, all those activities?
Yeah.
So those are the things that, are really kind of fresh in our mind with the start of school. I always love the excitement of a new year of school.
Right.
I heard a teacher once say that it's like opening day at the ballpark. Everyone's excited. Hey, no one's got any missing assignments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Butterflies, nervous. They got their new back to school clothes.
That was what I was saying. Did you pick out your first day outfit? That was always so critical.
Oh,
That's
100%. That's first impression.
That's right.
Well, that's good. So you're preparing into the school year. Yep. There's a lot going on. Obviously, one thing that we wanted to talk to you about, because you brought it up here, we're coming out of the big pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. Over the last year has just been crazy.
Still seeing some of those new
absolutely.
cases. So you guys, I'm sure, are really looking at this and thinking, how do we best serve our students? How do we keep people safe? And that's a really big balancing act.
Absolutely. And that's something that, the governor and the entire team take very seriously is to ensure that we're up to speed with the latest healthcare information, healthcare data, on calls with the CDC, ensuring that everything that we're doing is what's best for kids and making sure that the kids will be safe, teachers will be safe, and that, again, we can have life back to normal while keeping people safe. So trying to ensure that we have an eye on all those things. We monitor it very closely, monitor the cases, monitor kind of the spread, everything like that. So that's something that we take very seriously, and we're going to continue to keep an eye on as things come back to school.
He had also mentioned, you kind of saw a loss of education despite people's best efforts. So really evaluating where students are at now and how to bridge that gap. And you really have to assess that deeply, I would assume.
Absolutely. We're working on several ways that we can do a deeper dive into individual students to try to make sure that everybody is getting their needs met. And again, the disruption hit people differently, right? You have some folks that were able to go home and continue virtual learning.
Right. You
had some that didn't work very well for them. You had some students that were at home with a mom and a dad that were really helping them through their assignments, and you had some that mom and dad might work a lot, or maybe they don't have mom and dad in the home. And those are the type of students, that you really have to be intentional about as you look at how you're setting up processes and procedures inside your school. And so that's been a big point of emphasis, make sure all students have
That's
access.
good. So you mentioned their virtual learning. I wanted to ask you about that. So been kind of an overall theme, kind of a shift, if you will. What is this next school year going to look like? Is there going to be more virtual learning opportunities, or are schools more wanting to go back to the traditional way? What's kind of going on there?
Sure. It's really fascinating in the when you look at virtual learning, I think that there's going to be a level of virtual learning that's always going to be here to stay. Okay. And honestly, there's a lot of innovation that comes from that. There's just for an example, when you have the ability to stream a teacher or to share lessons in the virtual space, a kid is on a bus trip or a kid's at home sick, learning can continue.
Yep, right.
Some of your really good teachers, and I've heard this across the state as well, their lessons are more shareable now. Other teachers get more access to, hey, what are they doing in their classroom? You can actually see it in real time. You can share it.
About that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's really interesting to see how innovative some of our districts have been utilizing technology and how it's going to drive instruction, even in-person instruction. How can you leverage technology to improve the educational system? So I think that's really exciting. I think it's also one of those things that, again, schools are struggling with. I mean, it's new. It's very different. So how do you utilize your staff without overworking them? How do you change schedules? How do you make sure that you have the ability to offer both options to students? Because, again, you have some students that really like the virtual learning. There is an individualization aspect of it, a personalization of that you can work at your own speed, and it's more aligned to the way that you want to do things. So there's some students that like it, and there's some students that really prefer, and again, there's really no substitute for the teacher in the room, because you talk about relationship building, you talk about that motivational factor that comes from that teacher. We all have those stories, right? That teacher that just motivated you. And
we're social people, that
absolutely.
Connection is something so many kids, as they're developing their own personalities, that missed out on.
100%.
Absolutely. I mean, and you see that, and we heard that a lot from students that weren't able to attend school in person, is just the social, the mental anguish that that it caused a lot of them, of just having to stay home, not seeing their friends, not being around people that care about them. Again, their teachers and the counselors at school, administrators at school. I mean, these are strong bonds, relationships that have formed over time, and kids want to go back to school. Kids want to be with their friends.
We talk about innovation. You actually were one of the first teachers to look at a virtual platform and seemed very prepared, unknowingly, as COVID popped up. But talk to us about that. You were really doing this well before the pandemic.
Yes, it's really interesting, kind of the timeline for me, and that when I moved to Oklahoma City to work at a nonprofit, one of the things that I said is I wanted to continue teaching. And so I continued teaching at a school here in Oklahoma City, Millwood High School. And I wanted to stay connected with my hometown, McAllister, and continue teaching down there as well. And obviously that required a virtual component where I could be there sometimes, but I couldn't be there every day, obviously.
Two places at once.
Right, can't be in two places at once. So it really caused me to dive into, how can we do virtual learning? How can I kind of take my classes that I always did in person, and how can I have Socratic seminars, debates, project-based learning, and how interactive, classroom discussions through a virtual platform. So I'm working through all of this. This is a year before last. And COVID hits.
Right.
And for me, it was interesting. I got a full year of troubleshooting, of trying to make sure that I'm being effective in the virtual space. And then all of a sudden, our teachers all had to do it just on a dime that March. So it was really interesting for me to go through that learning experience myself. And then, every teacher in the state had to go through a similar.
Well, then, but what also a resource for teachers to reach out to you and actually ask about your experiences, what you learned in your early time doing virtual. So, if you were to say what is one of the main challenges that teachers do face with virtual learning, and then if you were able to identify, how are you able to kind of overcome what that is?
Tough to make the connections with kids. I mean, it's just...
Is it really just a physical connection?
It is.
That's awesome.
I mean, you think about a kid on their Zoom, we've all done it, right? Now we've all experienced the Zoom meeting.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Someone's frozen, it's lagging. They're like, are you really there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have the people that you can tell aren't really paying attention that much, or they don't have their video on, or then they just pop in to say something. They look like they're doing something else. Well, think about, again, I teach high school kids. Hey, high school kids, if they can, they're not going to pay attention, or they're going to have a little Netflix movie showing, and and so staying on top of them to really keep them engaged, but also to build that relationship in the virtual space. You just have to be really, really intentional, and it's really a struggle for a lot of kids.
Wow.
So I think that the building relationships and the motivation from a screen, can be really difficult in virtual learning.
You said the struggling learner is a lot easier to reach than maybe the apathetic learner, and that's something that we have to retool as kids come back to the classroom too, is it's finding the way to reach them.
Wow.
Because if someone's unsuccessful, you can give them building blocks, right?
That's right. So for me, we hear a lot about students that are behavior problems in school, and there's no doubt that those students, it requires a lot of effort from the teacher, a lot of really good skills from the teacher to direct that student and engage them in learning. But the students that really concern me, to me even, they're a bigger block than that, are your apathetic students. Your students that come in, I'm just here, my mom makes me come to school, I don't see the importance of it. This is dumb. What? And I'm a history teacher, so why we got to learn history? And to me, I can redirect a student. Oftentimes, it's a behavior problem over time, and direct them. But those apathetic ones, you've got to hook them. You've got to really connect it to them.
Right.
Why is this important for you? How does this empower you as an individual?
That's right.
And that can be a tougher thing. And again, we see kids, now, geez, I sound like, I sound like an older person here going, oh, kids these days. But kids, everything is driven to them in these short segments of, you look at, I hate to admit, I guess we are filming, so I hate to admit this here, but I did get a Snapchat.
Hey-o.
Like about a couple months ago.
Do you want to drop your handle for everybody or no? Okay,
I don't even know that I follow anyone. I don't know if I figured that part of it out or if anybody follows
one step
me.
at a time.
That's something your students can teach you, though.
Yes. They have pushed me for years to get one, and I fought it, and I finally got it, and it's just, it's like these 2-minute clips, and everything is so tailored to these really, and sometimes I think we have to be careful because we have to connect with those students and we have to engage them, but at the same time, they are capable of a lot more attention than the 2-minute span, and I give this example. Hey, we're sitting here on a podcast. Some of the most widespread entertainment right today, the most popular, are podcasts. And you look at some of these podcasts, they're 3 hours long.
Yep.
They're 2 hours long. And yet young people are glued. There's no visual component.
That's
I know some of them have a video, but it's not like there's
They're having to paint those pictures in their head
right.
just from the words. That's
and you're
awesome.
seeing young people share them. You're seeing young people get excited about them. And so it's just the way that you do things. It's connecting to the individual learner, why this is important, really driving that point home, and really making that connection. And what they're learning is important, and it's valuable for them.
That's good. Would you say a portion of that, or a large portion of that, is making the student understand how, like getting the buy-in, I guess. When we work with other entities, with other organizations, a big part of big projects is getting the buy-in. Why is it worth this to you? Why is this worth it to you? Is it the same thing for students also?
Teaching them that responsibility.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. You've got to get that, we oftentimes educators call it a hook. You've got to have that hook. Why? What is it about this that is important to you? Why does this affect you? And to me, as a history teacher, I always try to find those little things that they could relate to or connect to or draw comparisons to today, or even draw a comparison between, hey, this figure is a lot like this figure today, right? And when you start doing things like that, a lot of times it can help open that up for them. But I also really try to hone in on the individual aspect of, here are lessons that you can apply, that you can learn from, and it opens up a lot of wisdom for you.
That's cool.
That then you can apply in life. And and it's similar in every subject area. You look at math, you look at science, you look at the application of those things. And again, to be a really effective teacher, I think that teachers, you see our best teachers, they hold students to high expectations. They set the bar high.
Yep.
And they connect with kids. They connect with kids in a relational manner, and that they trust them as a mentor.
Right.
But also they connect them to the material, so
That's
that
cool.
they are, they get excited about it. And again, I tell kids, I get it. You're all not going to love history. Hey, you're not going to hurt my. That's one of the first questions I ask them is, who likes history? Okay. Now, who doesn't like history? Let's go ahead and let's address it. Why don't you like it? And and that's okay. I know that not every one of my students is going to absolutely love history, but I hope they have an appreciation for it and at least see how it. A better knowledge of it can help them.
That's cool. So let's change gears real quick, because I want to talk about your role as Cabinet Secretary of Education for the state of Oklahoma. So first question is, when you went and you were a teacher at McAllister was the first school you taught at, right? Yep. Did you envision someday did you have goals of being like the Secretary of Education?
No.
Is that a bit of a surprise? How did that call work when the governor called you?
Oh, it was a very interesting night. I'll never forget. So I was out at dinner with my wife, and it was actually for her birthday.
Let's go. And
yep. So we're out having dinner, and I get a call, and I try to be conscientious of not answering a call during dinner, and I just look at it, and it says Governor Kevin Stitt. And I kind of show her, I think I got to take this call, and she's go take it. And he was offered me the position. Talked a lot about kind of the way that we'd worked together on some past projects, and wanted the classroom experience. And we talked about our vision for education, and he offered me the position. And so go back in, tell my wife, and of course call my mom and dad and my grandfather, and tell everybody. And it was very, very exciting.
Wow,
very memorable night.
That is awesome.
And then
just seeing Governor Kevin Stitt pop up on your caller ID when you're like, "Happy birthday, honey."
Yeah.
I did end up doing another birthday
there
dinner
you go.
for because it kind of did turn into like I've got to call my mom.
Good man.
Right.
A lot of good husband points here.
Absolutely.
So in your role as Cabinet Secretary, you obviously have agencies who report directly to you. It's not just OSD GSD. I mean, it's
Sure.
a few different agencies that actually
That's right.
report up through you. So can you kind of talk through that? Who reports to you? How does all that work together?
Sure. So between the agencies, commissions, and boards, I think there's 38 that actually fall underneath the Secretary of Education. The bigger ones,
Right.
of course, are State Department of Education, the higher regents of our universities and colleges, career tech systems. Some of the other, those are your biggest three there. And it's. I really see the role as a convener. When you look at it, you see the state superintendent, she's elected. You look at the chancellor of higher ed, that they're really appointed through the board.
Right.
And you look at career tech is similar. The superintendent is appointed through the board. So what I really try to do is, so there's all these different constituencies represented there, is to try to bring folks together and try to talk about what the vision is for education moving forward.
Right.
I work very closely with workforce. Secretary Mueller and I have had a great relationship, Secretary Copeland before, about seeing the overall picture and trying to engage everyone on how do we take, in general, Ben Robinson, we always steal this quote from him that says, hey, workforce begins when you ask a child what they want to do when they grow up.
Yeah.
And just connecting everything together and really trying to bring the different agencies, bring the different programs, trainings together to try to say, what's the end goal that we want?
Right.
And are we allowing all the different pathways for students to get there? Because, the reality is, you hear the governor and I have been using a phrase a lot, students, not systems. It's a phrase we've really grown attached to because we think it's very important when you talk about education that you talk about data is important, obviously.
Right.
You look at the numbers, you look at policies, you look at sample policy, you look at what other states have done,
Right.
you try to do best practices. But I think it's very important we always remember we're talking about people. All those data, all that number, it's about individual people. And we're
Right.
talking about young people. And when you talk about young people, the thing that I love most about working with young people is just that sense of hope, that sense of the world's in front of me, I can do anything. There's a real optimism of working with young people. And I think it's really important that we all continue to make sure that as a state, we've invested in our young people to ensure that every option's available for them. As a teacher, I always wanted to make sure that when my students left my room, they had all options available to them. Now, that didn't mean, I had this one student, and a story that always stuck with me is he came up to me one day, and I was teaching an AP class, so it's an advanced placement class for college credit. And he said, hey, Coach Walters. Now, I was a coach back then, so I'm Coach Walters of them. Coach Walters.
Coach history teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The cliche, absolutely. I just want to tell you, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go to college. And I said, okay, well, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go be a welder, actually an underwater welder, for this oil company. I saw that they pay for me to be trained, and I can start at this salary, and I get to travel the world. And it was really this moment for me where I thought, what am I doing? I did a lot of self-reflection of, why did I make it where he thought that wasn't...
Yeah, why did he have to apologize?
Right,
Wow,
exactly.
That's interesting.
So I really became very conscious after that of ensuring that students knew, I want you to leave my class with the ability to go to college, with the ability to be successful in college, but I want all options on the table so you can decide. Do you want to go to college? Do you want to go directly into a job? Do you want to go to a type of job training?
Right.
Do you want to go directly into these type of opportunities? And again, I still get Facebook messages from him all the time about where he is around the world and makes really good money, loves his job, very fulfilled. And so I think it's important that as a state we view it that way as well, right? That college is great. Want young people that want to go to college and get those degrees. But also other pathways work for individuals, and they're very successful through those other pathways.
That's awesome.
I think it's also about giving them the tools to be able to make those decisions, right?
right.
So one
That's
of the big things that came out of this session was broadband, and we talk about connectivity issues for people in those rural communities. How do you see that playing a part of education in the next years or so?
I think it's going to be a big factor, again, to what we talked about previously, just about the virtual learning. I think that there's a lot of opportunities there. One of the things that the governor's championed is AP courses across the state, computer science courses across the state. Those are two bills that passed in the last 2 years to make sure that if you live in a really rural community and you don't have an AP teacher maybe there, could you stream it from another part of the state? Could you find a really great AP math teacher from a county over and actually take their course? It's we have the ability to do that. We are really excited about what the opportunities are there, but broadband will be a limiting factor. And so I think that as long as we can continue to invest there and continue to move the ball forward to make sure that students do have those type of opportunities. And I think that's really, when we talk about quality education, we want to make sure that every student has access to a quality education. And that's one of those access issues, right?
Well, what called you to represent Millwood? Because historically, I think people have said that that's been a district that has suffered resources, but having you plugged in there, it seems like you're rising to a challenge.
Right, so they've got a great superintendent over there, Cecilia Robinson Woods, and her and I connected on another project, and we talked about potentially doing this, and she brought me in and got to work with, so that's been, I've been doing that for 2 years, so getting to work with that school and getting to work with those students has been tremendous. I've got a lot of great experiences over there, and again, it has really worked out for me to be able to continue to teach. I get to see them a lot more regularly since they're here in town, so getting to work with them over the last 2 years has really been great.
That's something people don't even probably realize is that our state cabinet of education is still teaching courses right now at Millwood, correct?
Yep.
You have so many hats to wear: Secretary of Education, and I mean, how do you do it all?
Teacher, dad,
yeah.
husband, right? Yeah.
Dad of 4.
Yeah. So we have our 4th. So yeah, we're busy at home too. I mean, we got 4 little ones running around, and so that they definitely keep us on our toes. But no, I've been really blessed again that the governor, when I asked him, I said, look, I want to continue teaching. That's a passion of mine. Right. I love being able to work directly with young people. I want to continue doing that, and he was
really
just
cool.
He was
really
absolutely cool. Would love for you to do that. That's part of the perspective you bring. I would never want you to step away from that. Yep.
And you're still staying in the classroom. You get to have both sides of the perspective on that. That's perfect.
Right, and getting to work with teachers, regularly I get to talk to teachers every day, and getting to actually be in the classroom and continue to have those experiences with kids,
right?
And getting to, again, I think it helps keep me even more grounded to what teachers are dealing with day to day. But again, for me, I wanted to be a teacher from when I was 14. I had this teacher one day that was telling these stories about Abraham Lincoln and just hooked me. I mean, I was a full nerd after that. I mean, I was out with my grandpa at a restaurant talking for 2 hours about the Compromise of 1850, and people would come over.
You may have liked our last episode of the podcast.
I did like
Thompson of the Historical Society.
It was very good.
We didn't even get to talk about your role though for Every Kid Counts. I mean, you're also wearing another hat there. So really, what function are you serving here as secretary, as there, and as a teacher?
Sure. I run a nonprofit called Every Kid Counts Oklahoma, and our goal is to work directly with parents, teachers, and community leaders, so business leaders of nonprofits, to really help find a unified vision for education moving forward. And again, I mentioned my role as, I think of it very similar. As Secretary of Education, I view my role as a convener of a lot of those different agencies, right? In my role in a nonprofit, it really is a convener of those different groups, because the way we view it, nobody knows their kid better than their parents. Their parents know their kids' aspirations, their kids' unique talents, skill sets, what they want to be, what they need. Teachers know best at delivery method inside the school, right? When you talk to teachers, they can really talk about how you teach concepts, how you can do this in a way to make students, give them the ability to be successful. And then when you talk to community leaders and you talk to business leaders, you really get the sense of this is what it means for the community. Yeah. This is they see the end product. A business leader, as they're trying to hire someone, there's an interesting perspective they bring to the table to say, we have these jobs available, or our workforce needs A, B, and C, to ensure that when our young people get all the way through our education system, there's a job there, and a job that they'll be fulfilled at, right? So that they, again, when we talk about a student, academics, test scores, they're important, but they don't define a child. Yeah. A child is a lot more than a test score.
That's where you have the data is great, but at the end of the day, you're still teaching a kid. You're still teaching a student, right? It's a person at the end of the day.
That's exactly right.
That's awesome.
So are we getting the most out of the talents and skill sets of kids?
That.
I got 4 kids. They're all 4 very different already. Very different personalities, very different set of talents there. Right. One of them's really creative. My 4-year-old, she's super creative, My 6-year-old is very much in line of, I'm going to do it this way and this way and this way, very organized, very much a mathematical thinker. And you just think about, we want an education system that gets the most out of every talent and skill set and doesn't try to fit a child into a certain pathway moving forward. And that is where, when I talk to the business community, they get excited about that too, because that's what they want. They want to see all of our talents realized, and that's where not only does it help as a workforce, it helps us as individuals. You talk about people that are fulfilled at work and feel like they make a difference. That really can drive happiness. I think that ensuring that you feel like in your role and your position, that not only are you doing a good job at it, not only does it align with your skill set, but hey, other people benefit from it. I just think that when we talk about serving the child as a whole, we want to make sure that they're able to fulfill those talents in a way that makes them successful so that they can feel that.
That's really cool. So you talked a little bit there about the future, about the direction the state wants to go in education. Talk to us a little bit about the action steps. What's happening right now within education that excites you? What gives you hope about the future within education? New exciting innovation. What are you most excited about?
One of the things I'm really excited about is I think we have parent engagement in a way that we haven't seen in recent years, and that parents have gotten really engaged. I mean, because of the pandemic, they had to be, right? The kids are at home. What are you learning about?
Almost like reinvigorated type.
Absolutely. So what are you learning? Can we see? We're watching the lessons. We're watching the teachers. We're seeing what's going on, and they get excited about. Look at what's going on in the school. I want to come. How can I help you with this? This teacher's doing. I'm going to tell you, my daughter during the pandemic, we had one of the most incredible teaching experiences. Her kindergarten teacher up here at Deer Creek Public Schools was phenomenal. Her name is Miss Zoller, and she went
shout out.
Yeah,
shout out to Miss Zoller. I will give her a shout out anytime I can, because I'm telling you, she was just a rock star. I mean, we were getting materials dropped off at our house every week. There was a video every day. There was an individual Zoom with our child.
She was doing an education delivery to your doorstep?
Yes, to each child's doorstep.
It's amazing.
I might move to Deer Creek.
It was, but we saw that, and again, and all the parents in the class, what can we do to help? This teacher's incredible. And we got to actually see her teaching, right? Because, we got the video. So we're there watching them with our daughter going, she's an incredible teacher.
Wow.
Just an incredible teacher. And so I think it's really important that we engage parents, teachers, and community leaders all together so the student has the best chance at success. Because, again, when parents are engaged, when parents are, hey, what are you working on? Hey, how can we help? Getting to know the teacher. It puts you in such a better position for that child to be successful. And as a teacher, I loved when parents wanted to be involved. I loved when parents were, hey, we saw that you sent home this packet, or that you were doing this online with the child. That's when you have a student that not only are they learning in your class, they're going home and their parents are engaged, talking to them about what they're learning. This is when you can really see amazing things happen with kids. So I think we're seeing a level of parent engagement that we really, I think it's unique. I think they're more engaged, and they have a more engaged in the day-to-day of what's going on in the school. I think that's exciting. I also think that we've seen teachers that have taken this time to innovate, to rethink the way education can be delivered, the way that I can teach a lesson.
Right.
And so it's been this opportunity for teachers to really engage in that way. And I've seen some amazing things happen in classrooms across the state.
So when you say teachers go back, not necessarily to the drawing board, but maybe they look at their lesson from a new perspective, because they were kind of forced to during the pandemic. What are a few ways where they are providing innovations within their lessons for students?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one of the things that I've seen that I think is really interesting is that now a lot of times with some of these group projects they have students working on, they will have them do these type of recordings and videos of their actual lesson. So one of the things is, first of all, having a video lesson where a kid can go back and watch it. I mean, we've all been there before where as a child,
100%.
You
Can you say that again?
Right. It's just like reading, and I use this example a lot. I mean, have you ever you're reading a book?
You go back and read the chapter again or read the page again?
Yeah, you get to the bottom of the page and go, what
the heck did I just read?
I don't know what I just read.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you can go back and reread it. One of the issues sometimes with lecturing in a class is that a kid might zone out for a minute, and that's gone. That 5 minutes, that 10 minutes is gone. Wow. But I've seen teachers hey, I'll record my lectures, right? I'll still give them, because I can there's something about being there in person, right? But I'll record them. You can go back and watch them if you miss something. I can record a class debate, a class seminar. I've seen teachers that do this. We have the students record snippets, and we embed those snippets into the lessons.
Yep.
And so there's actually this, now you have this moment saved, right? And I've had those moments with students where you're in this class discussion or debate and real learning happens and you see this light come on in students' head.
Right.
I mean, we now have teachers that are embedding those type of moments by recording them, by recording their lessons, and I think you've seen a lot of.
So it's kind of like popcorn reading. Do you remember when you were in class and you had to follow along on the book? Because if you got called on and you didn't know where you were, that's what that is. It's like now you have to pay attention because you might be. That's probably not a thing in virtual learning, and I dated myself there. But I think the innovation with technology is only continuing 100%. To grow.
I really like how you said it, and they record like debates. My mind immediately went to like, okay, imagine a student. So like, I know like when I got to college and started seeing game film, like it was a game changer, right? Because I could see it from a different perspective. I'm not just in the game, but I can see it from outside perspective. Right. Imagine being a student who's been debating. They're in the moment, and then you can play it back in your mind, but it's different if you can go back and watch a video of it and actually prepare for the next time. That's a game changer. That's amazing.
That's right, and to see the delivery. Again, I worked with some larger districts that did. They went out and found, a lot in public schools was one, where they went out and said, hey, we're going to find who is our best math teacher at delivering a lesson, and can they do that virtually? Okay, if they can, we're going to have them do the virtual delivery of instruction. And so what they were able to do is to say, we're going to identify who does this really well, and we're going to stream them in an even broader way to our district, and then have everyone else kind of help fill in those gaps of what else is needed for a course. But you see the opportunities there, and we're working on some projects as well with the state to do the same thing of, can we go out and find some of our best teachers from around the state? Could we embed their lessons and then offer it? And then, if you're a student, no matter what school you go to, could you take some of that course? Hey, maybe you stay in your course now, but that's a supplemental aspect to your course. Maybe this is one course you take, right? But again, look at the opportunities of access when it comes to who gets to take teacher A.
Right.
Maybe now is not that teacher can actually have 300 kids in a class. I'm not saying that. But could you get to hear a lesson from that teacher?
It now offers so much more flexibility than ever has been possible.
That's right.
Pooling your resources so that kids get the best outcomes.
That's right.
I think the way we always end this is always asking about your hope, but also open-ended as kids head back to the classroom, as these parents are saying, okay, we're going to make the shift. Is there any message you want to give to Oklahoma families as they watch this before we close it out today?
Yes. What I would say is I am so incredibly excited to be here, to be in the state, to be in this role, to have the opportunity to represent all of our students. And the way I see it is I think that we've got this tremendous opportunity here as we've got leaders around the state that have engaged and have become incredibly invested at doing what's best for our young people and putting them first. And again, the governor and I say that a lot of, putting kids first. And what we mean by that is, again, looking at every student as an individual, students over systems, again, driving everything down to the individual level. What is best for your child? And if we continue to take a systematic look at what can we do to ensure that every student has the best possibility of success, what I see is going into a new school year, I know our parents are excited for their kids to go back to school. I know the teachers are ready to see the kids. And I think if we continue to take this type of view, we're going to have our parents from across the state, our teachers from across the state that are doing the heavy lifting. They're the ones every day that are working with our young people. They're the ones that are engaging and encouraging them. They're the ones that are teaching them so that they can be successful in life. I think as a state, we're going to see tremendous things happen. I think we're going to see our education system really be this robust system that prepares our students for the 21st century workforce, but also for fulfillment. And again, when I see things around the state, when I see what's going on, I'm excited about the future. I'm excited for my 4 kids that they're going to get to go through our education here in the state of Oklahoma. And so I would encourage them to stay engaged, and again, to just, tell when I get an opportunity to talk to young people, I tell every one of them that they have the opportunity to change the world. And I know that because when you study history, that's the way it happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, somebody does it.
I can prove it to you. Somebody did it right here. Absolutely.
And that opportunity is there. And you can change the world for another person.
Yeah, that's cool.
You can change the world for the entire state. You can just change the world in so many different ways. And so I would just want to continue to encourage our young people and continue to hold that bar high because, again, we can achieve great things here in the state, and I'm excited about what's next.
I love that.
Ryan Walters on fire for
Absolutely.
education.
Let's go. No, for real. Thank you so much.
Of
One,
course.
for coming on the show, of course. What we do here on the show is really just want to highlight all that others are doing to serve Oklahomans. And, man, you fit the bill, 100%. You and all the people you're working with, just in all that you're doing, such an important area of service is education, right? And so thank you for all you're doing for the state in that area.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Like I said, I'm a big fan, so I was very excited to be here today and really enjoyed talking with you.
We'll definitely have you back on. Don't worry.
Okay, awesome.
Love it. Well, guys, thank you so much again for joining us here on this episode of the GSD Podcast. We've learned so much here from Ryan and all that he's doing in education. It's all these different facets working together for one thing you said there, which was what's best for your child, what's best for your student. So thank you again for sharing all this with us.
Yeah, guys, please be sure to like, comment, and share, and we will see you on the next episode of the Get Stuff Done podcast.
Thanks, guys.